Hi, it's me again, Renee. Let me give a little history about me. I thank God that I am a survivor of domestic violence and abuse. I met my husband when I was 16, he was 26, and didn't know that I was getting in something that would cause me a lot of hurt and pain. On my podcast, I always say if you are in an abusive relationship, whether it's your spouse, or someone else, please ask God to guide you out safely. I had to do that. There was too many bruises. I know what it's like to be afraid being in your own house. And a lot of times I wanted to give up, but God had to remind me numerous times that I have children. And if something was to happen to me, they would be raised by this person, and there's no telling what they would become or be. God also had to show me that abuse doesn't just affect children, the elderly, and even animals, because I'm an advocate for all. It also affects men. Now, that's one thing that I didn't know, and it never crossed my mind that men were being abused by their significant other, whether female or not. And I talked to a few people at an event that I did one day at the college, and I had these two men come to me, and they told me how they were afraid and how their wives were hurting and abusing them mentally, physically, emotionally. And God had to open up my eyes to say that this just doesn't happen to just females. So to be on the safe side, you have to ask God for guidance, because that's what I did. My husband told me one night he was going to kill all of us, me and our children. And I remember being so scared I couldn't move because he had a Winchester rifle pointing towards me. And I kept looking at the telephone, and he said, well, if you want to call the police, call them. And I looked at my kids from the side. I didn't look directly at them because I wanted to stay focused on my husband, because the gun is pointing at me and any movement probably would have, triggered him off. I prayed to God silently, legs shaking, everything shaking, my whole body shaking. And I said, God, if I gotta die tonight, please get my kids out of here. So I slowly moved towards that phone, but I kept my eyes on him, and I called 911. And when I called 911, I thank God that this dispatcher understood the way I was talking, that something wasn't right. It was monosyllables, one word here, no real examples of anything. And she asked me, where was my husband? I said, he's sitting on the bed in our bedroom. And then I got quiet for a moment, and she said, does he have a weapon? And I said, yes. She said, where's the weapon now? I said, pointing at me. And so she told me, don't worry, ma'am, help is on the way. I put the phone down. It seemed like it took forever, but I still stood there, and I sort of blocked my kids as best as I could so that if he did shoot, it would hit me first, because my kids are very important to me. When the cops finally showed up, they banged on the door. My husband had his gun under the bed, and he opened up the door, and this cop comes in with his arm already waved out with the weapon, and he saw me first, and he said, ma'am, come on, get out of here. But I didn't move. I told my kids to move first. And after my kids went in front of me, I went out the door, and I saw 6 police cars. I didn't hear sirens. I didn't hear anything. But they were lined up on the side of the street and on both sides of our house, and their arms was like over their car doors, and they had weapons pointed. And it's like God was telling me at that moment, what else is it going to take for me to get out of that? Now, I was raised to believe that when you get married, you stay with your husband or your spouse until you or the other is no longer here on earth. And I believed that, and I stuck to that. No matter what happened to me, with the punches and the abuse and starvation, locked in the house, Well, you can't get out because he has the key. We had a deadbolt on the door. And he's the only one that had the key. And then on the phones, he would take out the receiver so that if you trying to talk to somebody, they can't hear you because he took the middle part out. A lot of stuff I didn't know. But going back to what people were telling me from the Bible, I hadn't really learned the Bible that well yet. And so I was listening to them about staying with this person until one or the other of us pass away. But God didn't mean for us to be in a relationship for them to take our lives away. So not everything that everybody tells you is the truth. They take it out of content and they put it in their own phrase because either they're not happy or they don't want to see you happy. And finally, I had to get away from that marriage. I wanted to live. I wanted my kids to live. We wanted better things, better life. And I took the chance knowing I could have gotten killed, but I thank God that he protected me at that moment. My book, Shirley, came out in 2018. We revised it, I think, in 2021, something like that. And it speaks on how God has always been a part of my life and how he saved me from domestic violence. And I used to question, why did I go through so much? Well, he's using all of us that will listen as witnesses and testimonies for him. And because I'm a survivor, I'm an advocate for, domestic violence of any kind against women, men, children, animals, and the elderly. Nobody deserves to be hurt. Nobody deserves to lose their life, especially from someone that claims and say they love you and they care about you. If you love me and you care about me, you wouldn't do anything to hurt me. You would do more things to protect me. Sometimes our worst enemy is in our own household. And I'm speaking to those that might be in relationships right now that are destroying your mind and hurting you each and every day. Ask God to guide you out safely. Don't try to do things on your own too quickly. Don't let the other person know what you're doing. And talk to someone that can possibly help you get out. I had nobody. That's why I'm grateful to God. There was nobody around to help me. I just trusted that he would protect me. And I had to ask for that divine protection that only he can give to save me and my family. So I started learning the Bible for myself, reading it daily, joined church. And now I'm listening to ministers, and I got a frown on my face. I'm listening to ministers, and I'm like, something ain't right. Sometimes you got to watch who's teaching the word to you, because most of the time, they just want money. They're not really concerned about your welfare or your safety or your salvation. Right now, I'm a motivational speaker, writer, director, author, co-author. And there are a lot of things that God has allowed me to do that I never could view it, moving forward because I was being hurt so badly. That never crossed my mind. But I thank God for who I am now. I thank God that my children, they're in college, universities, and you never know what your kids are going through, what they held inside of them. It's best to talk about it, and we can get past it, because although all of that is in the past, and I don't cry like I used to telling my story, it's going to always be there. But it has to be there, because I can't talk to somebody that's being abused or been abused if it never happened to me. I can't say I understand. Somebody told me one time they understood what I was going through, but they said they've never been in an abusive relationship. Then you don't know the pain. You don't know the mental anguish. You don't know any of that. You can offer the sympathy, but don't say you know how I feel if you've never been through it yourself. Stay safe. Get out when you can. And pray to God always for safety.